make sure it's in front of you. I'm going to take you through how I would approach the questions, and you're going to annotate this the same way that I do, okay? So what I do, you do. What I say, you think about and do. So here we go. Read carefully the two passages. Malaria. The net gains of keeping mosquitoes at bay. Okay, I know I'm going to be able to find the two passages. There's one here. There's another one there. I'm sorted. I don't have to worry about that. I go to the next one. Question 1. Malaria. The net gains of keeping mosquitoes at bay. I check through. Okay, that's the one that's got that title. That's the one I'm going to be studying. I'll keep that one ready. And then I'm going to look at the question and start underlining words that I need to know about. Precisely, and that means I'm going to have to use as few words as possible, so I'm writing the words few there just to remind myself. What you learn from the article about malaria, I'm going to put a big circle around malaria, so that's something I'm going to write about. And the problems with the use of mosquito nets. That's odd. Okay, so I'm going to have a big circle around problems and the use of mosquito nets. I'll underline the use of mosquito nets. So there's actually two things I'm looking for. I'm just going to write the number 2 down there just to remind myself. I'm going to check the number of marks, which is 12. That says to me I'm going to write at least 12 points to get all of those marks. So I'm going to circle 12. And then I'm going to write the word number next to 12 to remind me that I'm going to number my points. I don't have to do that in the exam, but I'm going to do that for myself so that I know I've got 12. I might have more than 12, of course. Then the next bit says use your own words as far as possible. It's in bold. I'm going to circle that big time and remember to use my own words. Okay, now I'm ready to start. I pick up the right article, double check what I'm doing. Malaria, problems with mosquito nets. Atong Deng put on her finest clothes today and walked for 2 hours to receive a household item that could save her life and the lives of her 4 children. Mosquito nets treated with insect killer are being distributed free of charge by Malaria Consortium in the remote village of Rang Akher in southern Sudan. This is part of a worldwide effort to defeat the deadly disease that is malaria. Okay, I found out something about malaria there. It's a deadly disease. So malaria is a killer, because I want to change the words, and it can be combated with mosquito nets. I've got my first mark. I've written that down. You guys should be writing that on your paper or on your book, because you started question 1.
Can we write on that sheet?
No, we're doing it as an exam. You're writing it as an exam answer. That's my first thing I found out about malaria from my question. Then I go to the next paragraph. What is malaria? Oh good, that's going to answer malaria. What is it? Okay. The disease is caused by a parasite which is transmitted to humans when they are bitten by female Anopheles mosquitoes. Can I use any of that? Yes, it's transmitted by mosquitoes. That's what I'm going to have. It is transmitted by mosquitoes. That's in my own words. This occurs between dusk and dawn when the mosquitoes feed on human blood. Okay. Mosquitoes bite people at night. That's putting it into my own words, between dawn and dusk. Young children are most vulnerable because they've not developed enough immunity to fight the infection. Young children are most at risk because their immune systems are weak or are undeveloped. So
Sorry,
young.
I'm going too fast.
No, I'm not. I'll stop at the end of the paragraph. So young children are at risk because their immune systems are weak. In Africa, I'm reading the next bit. In Africa, children under the age of 5 die from malaria at an astonishing rate, around 3,000 a day, or 1 every 30 seconds. So I'm just going to say, if it's 3,000 a day, that's not going to be necessarily millions, is it? Yes, it is, because there's 365 days. So I'm just going to write, millions of children under 5 die in Africa every year. That's from malaria. Okay, I'll pause there so that you catch up. The disease progresses rapidly and causes damage to the kidneys, liver, lungs and brain. Okay, so my sentence is going to be, in my own words, malaria damages the organs. Because all those things are organs, kidneys, liver, lungs and brain. Malaria damages the organs. Don't think about it, Ella, just write it.
Do you have to do this word for word, or just what you're saying?
No, you can put it into your own words. I'm just teaching you what I do. Severe cases lead to coma and death. Even getting treatment does not guarantee recovery because the parasite has become resistant to the cheaper drugs. Okay, so I'm going to put malaria often kills. That will sum that up. Effective treatment is expensive. That's not telling me about malaria, and often in short supply. It's not telling me about malaria either. I'm going to ignore it. Okay, so I'm on to my second bit, which is the mosquito bit. There are problems with the mosquito nets. And I've got a heading. Why are mosquito nets so important? That's likely to tell me. Here we go. The net is effective. It works in two ways. Serving as an actual barrier, it prevents the insects from biting, and it will also kill them, provided the insects are not already immune to the insecticide in the net's fibres. Okay, so that's my first problem. Some mosquitoes are immune to the insecticide in the net. That's my first problem. So the first problem is some mosquitoes are immune to the insecticide in the net. Okay, then I'll go back and read the next bit. The newest type of mosquito net lasts up to 5 years, and experts consider this to be one of the few magic bullets in global health. That's not a problem, so I'm going to ignore it. World Health Organization wants everyone at risk of malaria to be able to sleep under a net, believing this could cut deaths by half. It's an ambitious target when at present fewer than 1 in 4 children in Africa sleeps under a net. So that is a problem, isn't it, with nets? Okay, only a quarter of African children have a net to sleep under. So that's a problem with nets. There aren't enough of them. I'm going to write that down. There are not enough nets, comma, only a quarter of children in Africa sleep under a mosquito net. So I found a problem. Just hang while people write. Right, why are mosquito nets not more widely used? Okay, that would be a problem. One problem is there just aren't enough nets to go around, even though Western donor organisations have become more generous in recent years. Okay, so the West isn't providing enough nets. I've got the West isn't providing enough nets. Charities such as Comet Relief have paid for some 5.4 million nets for the poorest and most remote regions of the malaria-stricken continent. This sounds impressive, but a further 14 million nets would be needed just to keep one country, Kenya, on target. Okay, I'm going to summarise that. Each country needs millions more nets. That will summarise that. Okay, then I'm on to the next page. Many of the communities most affected are the least accessible. Malaria Consortium's next stop is the delivery of 6,000 nets to a string of fishing villages along the shores of Lake Albert in Uganda. Okay, I'll put that into my own words. Much of Africa is inaccessible, comma, so nets can't reach them easily. Something like that. So this country has the highest recorded incidence of malaria, and the need for nets is urgent. I've kind of talked about that already, so I'll ignore it. But the villages sit at the bottom of the steep Rift Valley. Well, I've already said it's inaccessible, so I don't have to repeat that. And can only be reached by plane and then by boat. That's quite interesting. So I might add, some places have no roads. And then that shows that they'd have to go by boat or plane. My next paragraph. When nets go out to homes, people can be unwilling to use them or use them incorrectly. Some people say they experience a sense of suffocation or discomfort when sleeping under a net. In Uganda, malaria nets have been sewn together for use in fishing by villagers who feel there is a more pressing need for food than for disease prevention. Oh, I've got a couple of problems there. Okay, so another problem is that people don't use the nets properly. Comma, many don't like sleeping under them, comma, and people use them for other things like fishing. Or, I'm going to read the next bit, bridal veils, full stop. Okay, there's something about food there, I haven't mentioned that. So, hunger is more important than disease. I might put that as my next bit. Right, next paragraph. Interviews with women in Aton Deng's village suggest that there is a substantial seasonal variation in whether nets are used. Amir Garang already has 3 nets for her household, but she hasn't used them yet because there are only a few mosquitoes this time of year. Okay, how am I going to summarise that? Some people don't use them because they don't understand how dangerous mosquitoes are. I'm looking for sticks to hang them on and waiting for mosquitoes to come. That's sort of the same thing. She doesn't understand. So what I've just said is they don't understand how dangerous mosquitoes are. Okay, next final paragraphs. Dr. Elizabeth Juma, Director of Kenya's Division of Malaria Control, believes it is vital to get people to change their behaviour. That's a problem, isn't it? People need to change their habits. I've got to change the word behaviour to make it my own words. People need to change their habits. You have to get people into the habits of hanging a net, she said. In many homes there is no fixed sleeping area, so people must be encouraged to carry their net with them. Okay, so I'm going to say their habits, comma, to hang their own nets. The next bit is another problem. Local superstitions must also be challenged. Some villagers have been afraid to use white nets as white is the colour of death. Oh gosh, okay. So racist. So superstition is another problem. I'll just say that. Superstition is another problem. I'm not going to mention the next bit. I want it, given the nets could save lives. The volunteer malaria workers express bitter frustration when they hear about nets sitting folded and unused in the corner of a hut while a child comes down with fever. They know that instruction in how to use a net is as vital as the net itself. Ah, okay. So to combat this, people need to be shown, because I can't use the word instruction, need to be shown exactly how to use their nets. People need to be shown exactly how to use their nets. Okay, I'm on for my final paragraph. That is why Aton Den, the other woman from her village, gather in the shade of a tree and listen while a volunteer demonstrates how to hang the net and explain its importance. Well, that's just about demonstrating, which I've just done. It's a demonstration that's had a great impact on Aton. I learned that it's my children who are most at risk, she said. If they sleep under a net, they cut that risk by half. I suppose I could add that. 50% of children will be saved if they sleep under a net. Okay? So, I've now finished that question. But, will you double check you've got enough? I asked you to number your points. You didn't have time to do that. Do it now. Number your points now to see if you've got at least 12. In the mark scheme, there are 15 marks that the marker looks for. You don't have to get all of them to get all 12 marks. Oh, okay, cool. How many?
22.
Woo!
15. Got 16.
21.
20.
Okay, so I've got a great sample there. I know you guys are going to be on full marks. Yeah? Now, just to recap my technique, I did not read this first. Yeah, that just wastes time. I found out that actually the 2 parts of my question, malaria, came first, mosquito nets came second. The examiners are trying to give me the marks. Right, I've finished my question in plenty of time. I'm going back to my keywords, which were concisely. Have I been concise? Has anyone written more than a page? We're all concise. Have I written about malaria? Yes. Have I written about the problems with the nets? Yes. Have I used my own words? Yes. Okay, I'm sorted.
Yeah, but we didn't use full sentences.
Hold on. I did when I was talking, so if you haven't used full sentences, you need to change that. Dan?
I was just wondering, in terms of the, it says as far as possible.
Yes.
What's kind of the limit on that? Like,
Well, for example, you can't change the word malaria because it's malaria, or insecticide, or so.
the thing where you said
Disease-killing substance.
Hold on. Yes.
You said you can use the instructions, so you changed it. Have to be shown.
Yeah, you'd probably get away with that, but because I could do it, okay. Right, I'm now on question 2, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I'm going to go straight back to the exam paper. Yes, go Philma.
In the
Please, I
exam,
need to hear.
in
Dan.
the, Dan, shut up.
Go.
In the exams, are we allowed to write on the things?
I want to make it compulsory that you write on the thing.
Script.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can, but can we write on?
Yeah,
these?
you can write on all of it.
Okay.
Yeah. The only reason not to write on the stuff that you read, on the extracts, is that it might slow you down. If you're doing anything quickly, write as much as you want on here. Okay. Right. So my question 2. Again, I'm going to go and I'm going to highlight my keywords. Malaria, the net gains of keeping mosquitoes at bay. First check is, do I have that? Yes, I do. It's here. I'm going to be using that one. How does the article convince you of the importance of mosquito nets? So circle round convince, circle round importance. I know I'm writing about mosquito nets. I'll underline it just in case I forget. In your answer, you should comment on the effectiveness of the writer's use of the presentation and language. Well, they've helpfully given me 2 keywords in bold. Presentation, putting a circle around that. Language, putting a circle around that. Effectiveness, okay, I'm going to put a circle around that. I remember that to look at presentation, I use flick. And I'm going to right flick down, font, layout, image, colour. I've written that there so I'll remember it. Good. Language, I know that just means quote. I don't have to worry. Okay. Presentation may include reference to the headings. Okay, big circle around headings. And pictures. Cool. And the way that the article is structured. Oh, I haven't thought of that before. How's it structured? What does structure mean? Beginning, middle and end. Okay, right. Beginning, middle and end. Right, I'll open it up, and I'm just going to write beginning at the beginning, just to make sure that I remember to talk about that. End at the end, I'm going to talk about the ending. Middle, I'll just write it. I'll write middle anyway, who cares? Right, okay. So I've got a lot to remember there. This one's not going to be as quick. There are 14 marks. It's not a summary question, so I don't have to make 14 points. What I am going to do is make sure I use all my time. 14 marks in my hour is going to give me about 28 minutes. I'll say 25 just to be careful. Right, here we go. Headings and pictures, that's an easy place to start, and I'm talking about how effective they are in the presentation. Okay, first I'm going to have to read it, aren't I? The net gains of keeping it at bay. I found out that I thought I was using that article, but I'm wrong. I'm using this article. Glad I checked. Okay, I don't have to reread this. Well, the first thing I'm going to notice is I'm going to write about this picture. How is it effective? A small mosquito is blown up so that it's massive to increase the sense of danger. So the photograph blows it up large to make it seem dangerous. I've already started writing that. Okay. Which is, then it says I've got to link that to the importance of mosquito nets, and I want to use my keywords. So which convinces me that mosquito nets are important? Then I've used both the keyword convince and importance in my first sentence. The examiner knows I'm answering the question. The next thing I noticed is the caption to the picture. So I'm going to use the word caption because I know that's the right word. The caption to the picture also convinces me it's important because it attacks all humans, and then I'm going to quote that bit about feeding on human blood. So we're all vulnerable. Good, so I've done that. That's important. It's trying to convince me with that. Brilliant. What else do I notice about the presentation? Oh, there's another photo. Fantastic. So the photograph at the end instead focuses on a mother and child, which tries to convince me that it's most important because it's going to save children's lives. And that's why we focus on the mother and child there. Good, okay. Just check that. Oh, I haven't mentioned effectiveness there, which is effective because that's where the West needs to concentrate their efforts, perhaps, convincing mothers to help their children. Right, okay, that'll do. I've made a point. Talks about the effectiveness. Okay. I'll pause now to let you catch up. When you've finished writing about the pictures, will you please clap? Particularly then I can hear all the claps go around. Cool. That's what they do in Ghana. The schools in Ghana, they put their hands up, clap. Discovered that this week.
That's not very practical. Does that mean?
Get on with it. It's a mock.
Must be a mock.
Right. Now we're killing mosquitoes everywhere. Nice. Okay. So I'm now going to just flick to the end and see if I can say something about the ending. That is why Anton Deng and the other woman in her village gather in the shade of a tree and listen while a young volunteer demonstrates. Okay. It's a demonstration that has had a great impact on Anton. Finishes with a quotation. I learned that this is my children who are most at risk, she said. If they sleep under a net, they cut that risk by half. So I asked myself, why does the article finish with that quotation? To convince us it's making a difference to real people, to convince us that people are actually changing, to convince us that the way to get people to change is to focus on their children. Okay, I've got 3 ideas there. I'm bound to be able to write something about that. So clap when you finish writing about why the article finishes with a quotation from Anton Deng and goes back to her at the end. Blimey. Could I just hear yours?
The end of the passage is a demonstration of how greatly the nets benefit your people. This convinces us that they make it the next difference to real life people.
That's very good, but I was specific about saying why he's finished with a quotation or she's finished with a quotation, why the article ends with a quotation. Yeah, because that's going to be part of the structure, isn't it? So I'll make sure I've got that. Okay, what else can I say about structure? Well, the obvious thing without reading it is that we've got these really helpful subheadings, which I noticed when I was reading it. So I'm going to say something about that. The subheadings are written as questions, which helps us find answers to questions of our own. Helps us navigate the text, but I'm just aware that I'm not necessarily answering the question. I've got to say how this convinces me of the importance. Right. So can I link the questions to the importance? Yes. The questions build up to show me just how important mosquito nets are. Which is why the last question is, what can be done to increase the use of mosquito nets? So that's the most important bit of information. Good. So I can now talk about why it's organised around those questions. Clap when you've done so. You know, I'm going to test you again, Connie, because you weren't 100% last time. Go for it.
Subheadings ask questions to answer questions of our own. Questions build up to show how important mosquito nets are.
That's really kind of note-taking rather than in sentences, isn't it?
No, but we won't actually.
Yes, we are. This is an actual go at it, so that you can see you can do it easily in the hour. Yeah? I want this to be as close to the real thing as you can. The only bit that's not close is you haven't got me talking in your ear during the actual exam. Hopefully, you will have a bit of me talking in your ear when you do the real thing. You have a bit going. Thanks, Matt. Right. Hopefully I've spent about half my time at most on the presentation. The next thing I'm asked to look at is the language. I'm just going to, have I done headings? Yes. Have I done pictures? Yes. Have I done structure? Yes. Good. I can go on to the language. I've got to talk about importance and convince. Convince is the same as persuade. Faster clock. I know. Oh, those are faster clock and persuasive techniques. Brilliant. All I have to do is spot them as we go. Okay, I'll start at the top. There's always something interesting about the headline. Malaria, the net gains of keeping mosquitoes at bay. Net gains and mosquito nets. There's a pun. So the point of the pun is to try and show us that mosquito nets are going to lead to improvement in health, because that's why it's net gains. Improvement in health, net gains. Okay, I've got a pun. I'll write about that pun. Nearly every pen is writing about the pun. That's very good.
Where's the pun?
Where's the door? Not the door.
The net gained.
Okay, now I'm just going to scan for anything that I notice. My biggest enemy is just doing lots at the beginning in detail and missing the ending, so I'm just going to make sure I spot things from different parts of the text. I'll start at the beginning. Finest clothes, walk for 2 hours to use a household item that could have saved a life and the lives of 4 children. Well, that's kind of a contrasting pair or emotive language, yeah. I've got a contrast between how I think of people in Africa being in poverty, yet she's dressing up in her finest clothes. So it's challenging my stereotype straight away, I might decide. So, okay, I'll write something about how he challenges our stereotypes to convince us that Africans are ready to help themselves. And the quotation I'd use is that she's got her finest clothes on. I'll stop talking after I've done the first paragraph. Mosquito nets treated with insect killer are being distributed free of charge. Remote village in southern Sudan. This is part of a worldwide effort to defeat the deadly disease. Alliteration. Defeat the deadly disease. He uses this alliteration to show how serious the disease is and to help us remember this fact. Brilliant. I've made 2 points about the first paragraph. I've got 2 quotations. Connie, I'm so going to pick on you.
No, sir, not again.
Yeah, get it done.
I've done it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but don't pick on me again.
Yeah.
That's 3 times.
When you get it right, I'll stop picking. So this is going to be in sentences, not in note form. It's going to have a quotation in it, hopefully 2 quotations and 2 points, but I'll forgive you just if you've only got 1. Go.
The author uses language such as finest clothes, which causes a contrast because it challenges our stereotype of Africans being in poverty.
Oh, you stopped after that?
Where does it say?
Yeah, come on, read me the next.
Okay. He then goes on to use alliteration, defeat the deadly disease, which shows us how serious the disease is.
Yes. Well done. I won't pick on you for the next bits. Awesome. So Connie's given us a model of how to do it, and the claps are telling me it's nearly safe to move on. I've got a choice now. I could either go through logically or I can take a leap and just jump. I'm going to jump a couple of paragraphs. So why are mosquito nets so important? The net is effective. It works in 2 ways, serving as an actual barrier. It prevents the insects from biting, and it also kills them. Ooh, pattern of 3. Serving as a barrier, prevents the insects from biting, and will also kill them. He uses a pattern of 3 here, and I'm going to quote it, to emphasise how effective the mosquito nets are, comma, they attack mosquitoes in 3 ways. Brilliant. I've used the word effective. Okay, I've jumped down to why are mosquito nets so important, because you'll remember from the random finger technique that anywhere I look I'm going to find a faster crotch techniques. So I jumped down there and I found that pattern of 3. Serving as an actual barrier, it prevents the insect from biting and it will also kill them. So the sentence is in a rule of 3, a pattern of 3, to show how effective the net can be in 3 different ways. Yeah, you've got to quote it, exactly, because it's a language. I must quote. Oh, 4 minutes left. Okay, I'm in trouble. I've got time for a quotation. I've got to have one from the ending then. So I've had a beginning and a middle. So I'm going to read the last bit. Dr. Elizabeth Juma, I'm reading from here. What can be done to increase the use of mosquito nets? I'm going to jump past the quotation. Local superstitions must also be challenged. Some villagers have been afraid to use white nets as white is the colour of death. Ironic, given that the nets could save their lives. Okay, I've got a contrasting pair there. White we associate with innocence, but they associate it with death. Why does he have that contrast, or she have that contrast? The author uses that contrast to show just how difficult it is to change people's minds about using the nets. Good, I'm going to write something about that contrast and quote that bit about irony. Okay, so I've probably used 4 quotations if I kept up with everything. I've definitely used 3 quotations, one from the beginning, one from the middle, one from the end. I've made at least 3 points about the presentation, so I'm very likely to get all the marks. As soon as the time limit's up, I stop that question because it's easier to get the marks at the beginning of the next question than it is at the end of the previous one. I'm going to rush you, and I'm going to start question 3. So I find my question paper again. Charity fundraising, boring and embarrassing unless you join in, says comic Robert Webb. How does Robert Webb present his views about charity fundraising? Okay, so I'm going to have views with a circle around it. I'm going to circle charity fundraising, that's what I'm looking at, in a light-hearted but thought-provoking way. Thanks. So I'm going to put a circle around light-hearted and another one around thought-provoking, which is annoying because it goes on to the next line, but that's life. So I've got 4 things to look at. The 2 most important bits, though, are the light-hearted and thought-provoking, and so I'm just going to find that article and put light-hearted, and then I'm going to put thought-provoking there as well, and that's just to remind me to write about those things. Okay, once again, I'm not going to read the whole article first. I'm going to stop reading as soon as I've found something that's light-hearted or thought-provoking. I'll just double check that that's what I'm looking for. Brilliant, and it tells me the name of the author, Robert Webb, so I'll mention his name as I'm writing. Okay. The build-up to comic release, mammoth annual fundraiser, Red Nose Day can feel like the build-up to a general election. One thing they both have in common is that they've taken over our TV viewing. As an added extra, they both provide the chance for seeing public figures getting a bucket of baked beans tipped over their heads. Wow, there's loads I could write about this, okay. So the first thing he does is he has a humorous contrast, because I've got to talk about it being light-hearted. There's a humorous contrast between the charity appeal and a general election, where general elections we normally expect to be boring, whereas the charity appeal we expect to be entertaining. Right, I'll write about that contrast. Clap when you're done.
Do we need to quote?
Let's go back to the question. Do I need to quote? You have pointed out a weakness in what I just did. I have to look at the next part of the question. In your answer, you should refer closely to the language and the tone. Oh dear, I forgot to put a circle round language and a circle round tone. Luckily, Phoebe was here to point out my stupidity. Brilliant. So now that I've highlighted the word language, do I need to quote? Yes, I do. Okay, so I'm going to quote. Ella, I haven't picked any in ages, but your homework was awesome, so I'm confident about this. Go for it. That's all right. Just read me what you wrote on that first page.
Robert Webb uses a humorous contrast between charity appeal and general election, as the election is typically boring. And I just quoted, it can feel like the build-up to a general election.
Result. Well done. Okay, the next bit I noticed in that bit, public figures getting a bucket of baked beans tipped over their heads. So he adds to the humour with deliberate use of comic alliteration. Bucket of baked beans tipped over their heads. Right, I'll write that down. Right, I'm going to cheat a bit here. In the exam, you'd keep doing what I'm doing, finding a bit more that's humorous, it's got a light-hearted tone, quoting a bit. But we haven't started at the beginning of the hour, so we don't get the full hour here. So I'm going back to my question, and I've dealt with how the fundraising is light-hearted, but I haven't dealt with anything about thought-provoking. Now I know from reading many articles where the thought-provoking part of the article is likely to be. What do you reckon? Yes, it can be more towards the end, isn't it? It might be some in the middle, but I know I'm going to find something thought-provoking towards the end, so I'm going to go to the final paragraphs. So I'm going to go to this bit here. There are other objections. There are other objections people raise that are less personal and more political. Charity lets governments off the hook. They ought to look after the poor. This has always struck me as feeble. Shall I not help a struggling mum carry a buggy up the stairs in order to send London Underground a powerful message that they should install a lift? Okay, so in order to be thought-provoking, he's ridiculing views that disagrees with him. What a faster crotch technique is that? Creating an enemy. Okay, so he uses a rhetorical question in order to create an enemy of people who disagree with him. And then I'm going to quote from that paragraph. When you've written about the rhetorical question and creating an enemy, please clap. Got time to hear yours, Dan, while people are writing?
But he used a rhetorical question to create an enemy of those who oppose his views, and then used the quote, "Should I not help a struggling mum carry a buggy up the stairs in order to send London Underground a powerful message that they should install it?"
Well done. And I think I wrote on your last homework, don't start your points with a quotation. And you haven't started your points with a quotation. Brilliant. It's just a clumsier way. If you make your point first, then the reader knows why the quotation is coming. If you just put the quotation there, the reader goes, "Why is that there?" I have to read on to find out. It's just a clunkier way of building an argument.
Maybe that's a rhetorical, maybe that's a protective reason for doing it.
It may be, it's a reason for doing it, but it's viewed as ineffective. My apologies for pointing that out. Right, let me sum up here though. Your exam skill is to make sure you've answered each part of that question. In real life you'd have longer for that question. You would just keep going and quoting. I'm going to go back to the question. Did I write about how he is thought-provoking in that way? So I'm going to double check now, that last bit that I wrote. I'm going to double check it. Have I mentioned him trying to provoke our thoughts, getting us to think? If I haven't, I'm going to add a sentence that includes that keyword. I can see lots of people still writing. Phoebe nodding at me, so she's going to read me her bit.
Provoking tone towards the end of the saying, in order to send London Underground a powerful message that they should install a lift. Here he uses creating an enemy of the London Underground government and uses a rhetorical question to emphasise his point, creating a small amount of emotion in the reader, like sympathy kind of thing.
Yeah, rather than say a small amount of emotion, you've corrected yourself. Creating sympathy in the reader. Good. Always be as precise as possible. Okay, listening to Phoebe's brings me to that last bit. She's made sure she used the word tone. So that's my final check. In my answer, have I used the word tone to let the examiner know that I've answered the question fully? Double check. If you've used the word tone and you've thought about the thought-provoking, please clap. The rest of you are keeping going.
I don't get how you write that tone.
You would just say his tone is humorous, angry, encouraging, colloquial, whatever you think fits. Okay, that is how to do the walking, talking mock. Hopefully you've got 2 full mark answers. The last one won't be full mark. If you've got any questions about the mock, email them to me. I will answer them from Belgium. And I'll put this on YouTube. with credits to all the people who I picked on.
That's coming up with a paragraph.
You see,